You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat basement, average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
It's the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else.
I'm Alan Ray, and I do this for free. It is the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. I'm your humble host, Alan Ray. Welcome to the show. Right off the bat, I'm getting ready for this show, and I'm scrolling through stuff, looking at articles, trying to find some interesting content, and I stumble across this stupidity. Newswise.com. says administering zinc supplements to COVID-19 patients with low levels of this element may be a strategy to reduce mortality and recovery time. At the same time, it could help prevent risk groups like the elderly from suffering the worst effects of the disease. These are the findings of a study by physicians and researchers from the Hospital Del Mar Medical Research Institute and Pompey Fabra University, led by Dr. Robert Guerra, a physician at the Infectious Disease Service of Hospital Del Mar, which has just been published in the Journal of Nutrients. All right. I and the people, the circles I travel in, we have known about this for a year. Stacy Lennox, right here on KLRNRadio, wrote an entire article on what she plans to do back in March of 2020, what she plans to do about this pandemic. And it included zinc, quercetin, vitamin D, vitamin C. Why is medicine just catching up with everybody else who's known about this stuff? Riddle me that, Batman. I'm Alan Ray. It's a refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. We got a lot to talk about today. Don't go nowhere. I've been doing some serious nerding out this past couple weeks. I know it's been a while since I've done it. I do this for free. You know why? You know why? I'll tell you why. There's really nothing to talk about outside of the realm of COVID and politics. Everything is either COVID-19 related or politics. I'm tired of talking about COVID-19, and really, honestly, if you want to hear politics, tune in on the opposite Friday nights for the Hardcore Patriot. I will talk till you're blue in the face and eating dirt about politics. Tonight, however, we're going to do something else. We're going to talk about different things. And I kind of like to do that every once in a while because quite honestly, you get to the point where you get eye strain. You open up your news feed. I don't watch TV. I read news feeds. I may watch a couple of YouTube videos. At TV, it's mind-numbingly dumb anymore. It just makes my head just swim. So I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of things. And in order to bring you this show, I have to have a certain amount of content that I at least think is halfway interesting, and I hope you think it's halfway interesting. And for the past couple of weeks, there's just been nothing. Nothing. And all of a sudden, we get this flood of everything. And I'm not going to go into SpaceX in much detail because Jeff has that covered on Lost Wanderer and In the Crease. You know, he's got all that stuff covered. But I will say this. They finally landed that big old rocket that he's got. It landed upright. It sat there for about 5 minutes and then it blew up. But baby steps, people, baby steps. A lot of people are going, oh, that's tragic. It's a waste of money, blah, blah, blah. No, it's research. And really, honestly, that's just part of being a pioneer. Failing. But every time you fail, and really, honestly, you know, I learned this from a young age. You never really fail if you learn something from what happened. You know, I have not met goals in life until later in life, but in my attempts to gain those goals, I fail, but I learn things as I go along. The next thing you know, it's second nature. I'm succeeding and I'm going on with life. That's kind of how life is. It would almost be boring if you just succeeded at every single thing you tried. How fun would that be? So, you know, here's the preachy part of the show. Learn. Have fun learning. Have fun failing. Speaking of failing and succeeding and learning, I have fallen down this rabbit hole, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it today. About a week and a half ago, I ordered a mini computer, a Raspberry Pi. Now, some of you have heard of it. A lot of you have probably heard of it. Some of you have probably heard of it in passing, don't know what it is. It is obvious. It's honestly it's a small computer that's basically the size, if you take 2 decks of cards and put them on top of each other, that's about the size of this Raspberry Pi. Now, that's the case and everything. If you open up the case and just get the computer out, it's about the size of a deck of cards, maybe even a little thinner. It's not a 1 terabyte, mega computer like, I record this show on. I do all of my, music and stuff like that on. I got a big setup and everything. No, it's kind of a simple computer, and it basically runs on a dual quad core setup, and basically you plug a little micro SD card into it. But the things it can do are pretty interesting. Now, I am in the process of using my Raspberry Pi, and I bought it just for this purpose. I went in after I got it. I played around with the buttons and bells and said, oh, look, and I mean, really, honestly, if your computer were to shut down and you had $100, your screen still worked and everything like that, and you had $100 to spend, maybe even less, you can get this kit for $80. And it comes with the cords. It comes with just about everything you need, except when you fire it up for the first time, you need a computer and a mouse that are actually USB wired. Now, that's kind of an ancient relic. However, okay, so let's backtrack, and I'll give you the cost breakdown of my setup. I drug out a nasty old screen, Hewlett-Packard, tied to the old computer that we had that I think was running, Lord have mercy, I don't even know what version of Windows it was running, but it was running some ancient version of Windows, barely worked, and this the screen was, by today's standards, nothing. Drug it out, dusted it off, got an adapter, so, because the Raspberry Pi comes with an HDMI outlet. Now, this is a Raspberry Pi 3 I'm talking about. There's a couple of different versions of it, and like I said, I took this tiny, dinky computer, not really expecting much. And so I've got, the kit from Amazon was $80. Now, if you break that down, there's an HDMI cable on there. Okay, let's call that $10. So that's, really the computer itself, that takes $10 off of it. So that's $70. It comes with a couple of other cords and adapters that probably another $20 worth of stuff, including the case. So $30 worth of stuff, you have a $50 computer. And even that, I mean, you can find sales on these things that are $35, $40. So if you really had issues and your computer just went to crap and you were frustrated, or maybe you need a backup for some reason, and you just want to surf the net and do some basic things, you can do it on a Raspberry Pi. Now, let me warn you. This is a Linux, or Linux, however you want to say it, type computer. This is not your Windows computer. It runs on, they recommend you run it on a program called Raspbian. And there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do like you do on your old Windows computer. That being said, I got on it. I'm of limited mental capacity. I got on it, was up and running within minutes. Decided I'd put it through its paces. Got on the internet, scrolled around, downloaded a few things that I thought was kind of cool that was Raspberry Pi associated. There is basically a Microsoft Office type setup for Linux, whatever you want to call it. And it's got a word processor. It's got a little, like an Excel program. It's got the same basic operations. I messed around with those. They're not bad. They'll do in a pinch. You can write on them. You can function with them. The difference is a lot of times when you run commands on them, you actually have to go back to a command window. Now, those of you kids who are a little bit younger, you don't remember what a command window was, and you don't remember having to actually type in program words to make the computer do different things. I do. Now, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. Well, I am. I'm 55. But the first computers I remember were basically a keyboard, a modem, and a printer. And you followed some commands, and which I, now know that we were programming it. And you could play two games. You could either make a banner with whatever you wanted to say on it. And of course, we were in middle school, so those banners were usually pretty vulgar. And you could also do a drag racing program where you set up the specifications of your car and you hit go, and it would print out all of this stuff and all kinds of data, and at the end tell you if you won or not. Well, I put a bunch of ridiculous infinite numbers for the dragster, my dragster in there one time. And, of course, this modem hooked to a vocational center in the middle of the county. And when I hit go, it shut the computer down because I overwhelmed it. Even back then, I was doing terrible things. But anyways, this Raspberry Pi, you have to do a little programming. But it's fun. It gets your brain going. And a lot of times, if you've got a cell phone or whatever like that, you can just say, hey, I want to do this. And some nerd somewhere has got all the programs. You can just type, verbatim what they've got. Or if you've got another computer and you're just setting this thing up to go, you can just cut and paste. So anyways, what I'm doing with this thing is I've spoken on this program before about software-defined radio. I have a software-defined radio set up. It's just to my left here. And it's kind of just a bunch of pieces that are pretty much Velcroed onto a board. Well, what I wanted to do was make it autonomous. I wanted to make it its own standing unit. So I got this Raspberry Pi, and I've done a test on it. I've done some programming, downloaded a software-defined radio program onto the Pi, hooked everything up, and by golly, it worked. So this also has Wi-Fi. The Raspberry Pi's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So when I get done, and if I follow these programs and the things that some of these people who know more about this than I do have set up, I will be able to, first of all, hook this thing up to any computer in the house because it's going to be hooked to a network wirelessly. I don't have the screen hooked to it anymore. I don't have the keyboard hooked to it anymore. I have a remote access to a couple of my different computers around here. So I can do everything, fire it up remotely. And that's kind of the nerd thing that I'm doing. It's a nerd alert. So anyways, that being said, there are all kinds of little projects online that you can do with these Raspberry Pis. People operate robots with them, cars with them. There is one guy that I found this to be the most interesting, made a doomsday communicator powered by Raspberry Pi Pico, which is the tiniest of the Raspberry Pis. The thing is like a sliver. It's probably about an inch by 3 inches, and it's enough to do what this guy wanted to do. This was in Tom's Hardware. It says the Raspberry Pi Pico is turning up in many imaginative projects, and the latest to the list is a long-range wireless chat doomsday communicator from Bobricius that featured a simple QWERTY keyboard and a small IPS LCD display. Bobricius's Raspberry Pi Pico computer, that's hard to say, Raspberry Pi P-computer is what it is the latest in their ArmaChat long-range radio messenger boards, powered by a single 18,650 lithium-ion battery. ArmaChat boards send messages over radio connections with frequencies and license requirements varying depending on where you are in the world. They can also be used in a mesh network with other users, handy if there's an apocalypse. This computer uses the power of Raspberry Pi Pico to drive a 240 by 240 pixel IPS LCD screen, which is directly connected to the SPI interface via the main PC board. A series of tactile switches provide a QWERTY keyboard, which will do the job. Cleverly, Bobricius used an additional PCB that fits over the keyboard or keys to protect them from damage and stop the wobble of the keys from creating a typo. There's a GPIO breakout along with the top of the board just in case we need to add any extra features. Based on previous models, we assume that the lithium-ion battery is charged in a SITU and that the P computer has a charged circuit to accomplish this safely. So this guy made this little bitty, basically what it amounts to, it's what we call in ham radio a node, which is the other use I'm going to eventually have for this Raspberry Pi. I'm going to create what they call a node in ham radio, which ties your radio into the internet so you can speak in your ham radio. It goes into the internet, comes out on a repeater somewhere else, and somebody driving down the road with their ham radio on can pick it up. So what this guy did was create kind of a node, but it's a message board node more than anything else. So yeah, I give this technology an A. I really do. Because really, honestly, I'm thinking now, to have one as a backup in case everything just fried, in your world, in your computer, have it preset, ready to go, all ready to boot up, but sitting off to the side. If your computer takes a ginormous technological dump on you, you can plug this thing in and still function. Not like you can on a huge home PC or a high-end laptop, but it lets you function. It lets you get on the internet, lets you surf, lets you do different things. To have it pre-programmed, ready to go and set off to the side, $80. That's for a whole kit. Or if you have something you can put it in, you have a little project box or something like that, $50. Ready to rock and roll. Highly recommend these little bad boys. And I'm sure I'm going to find 150 more uses where I'll end up buying another one or something like that and hooking it up to something else. I think Orty said he had his hooked up to his Alexa so he can, do commands on it. I haven't reached that level of nerdality yet, but I'm getting there. So anyways, moving on. Oh my gosh, 20 minutes into the program already. It's taken a while to get all of this compiled, but I found another interesting article. Daily caffeine intake changes the structure of your brain, according to IFL Science. Drinking a cup of coffee a day could alter the volume of gray matter in your brain, according to a new study in the journal Cerebral Cortex. Surprisingly, however, the study authors also found that caffeine consumption appears to have no effect on sleep quality, contradicting a commonly held belief that it's a popular psychostimulant. Gray matter generally comprises the brain's outermost layer and consists of neuronal cell bodies, otherwise known as soma. White matter, meanwhile, is made up of the connecting branches that link neurons together, along with which electrical signals are transmitted. The idea of your morning coffee altering the structure of your gray matter might sound pretty alarming, but researchers are keen to point out that these changes appear to be temporary and that just 10 days off of the coffee from abstaining from caffeine is enough to reverse this effect. This is author Dr. KLRNRadio, and she explains our results do not necessarily mean that caffeine consumption has a negative impact on the brain, but caffeine consumption daily evidently affects our cognitive hardware, which in itself should give rise to further studies. So it's neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. And then after you get done drinking coffee for like 10 days, your brain kind of builds back up to normal. I don't know how to feel about this. If I don't have my daily cup of coffee or two, then things get bad. Things go sideways. Things get squirrely. And no, I don't think. This could explain, however, the phenomenon that if you just cut caffeine out of your life all at once, a lot of people experience headaches, just throbbing headaches. My wife's one of them. She goes without caffeine for a day or two. She will just be miserable. So maybe that explains this. It's worth more of a study. I don't know. See, we're healthy here on this show. However, we do have to have our coffee. If I had to choose between, your brain shrinking and caffeine, I will choose my coffee every time. So there you have it. And without my caffeine, I can't do things like, program my Raspberry Pi to accept this SDR radio and things of that nature. Speaking of health, let's stay on the subject of health for a minute. Do you like oranges, grapefruits, tangerines, limes? Well, there's a good excuse to plop that lime on your margarita. The role of citrus in brain health. Citrus bioactive compounds improve general cognition. Now, this is published in Frontiers in Neuroscience. A new study showed that citrus polyphenols have an anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, both important for protecting brain tissues from damage, for example, due to aging or underlying health conditions. The research carried out by a team from the University of East Anglia collated hundreds of studies that looked at the impact of citrus flavonoids on brain cells and nerves, as well as 10 studies in human population. Now, having examined the available evidence, we are most confident in the findings that citrus bioactive compounds improve general cognition, both in healthy populations and people with age-related cognitive decline. Now, this is from the research author, Dr. David Vazur, a senior research fellow at Norwich Medical School. Damage to brain and nerve cells is one of the earliest signs of degenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's and age-related cognitive decline. Now, see, this to me is some interesting stuff because I've done studies on this before. Dr. Vazur noted that some evidence points to the potential that citrus has in reducing the risk of degenerative diseases. However, he said that this conclusion was less certain because it is based on emerging evidence and currently confined to animal and mechanistic studies. Now, he says studies on animals have shown that supplementing the diet with citrus fruit improves deficits in learning and memory, particularly spatial memory, which helps us to remember where we've put things, and recognition memory, which is vital for facial and name recall. Ha ha! Looks like I'm going to start eating oranges every day, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. I need them. It says we can see how citrus bioactive compounds would theoretically influence brain conditions such as dementia, and this is supported by observational studies. We need evidence from human trials before trusting these early indications, he explained. That's some interesting stuff right there. He goes on to say observational studies show combined effects of citrus fruits, so it's not possible to differentiate between the two types, juices versus whole fruits. The available clinical trials have focused on 100% orange juice. A few interventions added pumice back into the juices, but this made little effect to the results. This is why we concluded in our review papers that both whole citrus fruits and their juices have a role to play in supporting brain health and cognitive functions. So, there you have it. That lime on your drink, don't be afraid to eat that baby. Help your brain. Somebody says something about it, say, hey, I'm brain health, man. Back off. So, this is going to open a door, hopefully, for more research on cognitive health. And this Dr. Vazur believes that, a well-designed controlled clinical trials are needed because really only 5 human trials have tested the impact of citrus polyphenols on cognitive functions. We need more research on this to see if this is actually going to hold, that is, this theory holds weight. So far, so good. I like breakthroughs like this in cognitive health, cognitive ability. Basically because, since I turned 50, I can feel myself losing it. It's going. Yeah, I'll set something down, turn around, and it's not there. And it's just old man moments. And it's funny because my wife, who usually was put together pretty well unless she was pregnant, she's always been like a rock. She can remember everything, remember every date. Me, I wake up, look out the window. If there's a world outside, I'm good. I don't want to remember a lot of things, so I don't. However, it's getting kind of annoying now. So I don't know. Maybe citrus every day is in the mix now. I mean, I do eat a banana every day. I have an apple every day. Why not throw an orange in there too? Or at least some orange juice. Orange juice is good. All right, we've already reached the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we have glow-in-the-dark sharks, we have locust ears, and some other things that are kind of strange, like the CDC update guidelines for zombie apocalypse. Don't go anywhere. We'll have some more fun.
Listen now and don't forget, if you go for that solid jive, you can always keep the dream alive. Palin with Al.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Back. It is the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. I'm your humble host, Alan Ray, and I do this for free. Unless you want to send me $1 million for sitting here and rattling off for an hour, I mean, I'll accept it. I'll change the title to I get paid for this. I don't care. Let's talk about space hurricanes. Space hurricanes. No, really. In 2014, and they're just coming out with this because they really weren't sure what they were looking at. A research published in the Journal of Nature Communications described the first space hurricane ever spotted. Satellites observed this in August of 2014, a swirling mass with a quiet center more than 125 miles above the North Pole. Whereas regular hurricanes churn air, the space hurricane was an eddy of plasma, a type of superhot charged gas found throughout the solar system, and instead of rain, this storm brought showers of electrons, which played heck on a lot of the satellites and things like that. Michael Lockwood, a space scientist at the University of Reading and co-author of the new study, said in a press release, until now, it was uncertain that space plasma hurricanes even existed. So to prove this with such a striking observation is incredible. Apparently, the space hurricane was more than 620 miles wide and high in the sky. It formed in the ionosphere layer between 50 and 600 miles up. Lockwood and his co-authors used the satellite data to create a 3D model of the storm. It had arms like some sort of a galaxy far, far away. It had an eye, just like a regular hurricane. They plugged the satellite data into a computer model, and Lockwood and his collaborators were able to reproduce the storm and figure out what caused it. The results showed that charged particles emitted by the sun's upper atmosphere, the corona, were to blame. This steady stream of solar particles and coronal plasma is known as solar wind, and it moves about 1 million miles per hour. Now, he said these space hurricanes must be created by unusually large and rapid transfers of solar wind energy and charged particles into the Earth's upper atmosphere. As solar wind reaches the Earth, it encounters the planet's magnetic field. Earth has such a field because of the swirling liquid iron and nickel in the outer core, which gives rise to electric currents. The resulting magnetosphere protects the planet from deadly radiation from the sun, but also retains a tiny layer of plasma from solar wind. Typically, solar winds glance off this protective sheath, but sometimes the incoming charged particles and plasma interacts with either the trapped plasma or the electrical currents generating the field. Such interactions create disturbances in the magnetosphere. The 2014 space hurricane was one of these disturbances. So, you've learned something new today. There is a thing called space hurricanes. Now, if this stuff happens in the ionosphere, it makes me wonder in 2014 just exactly how that affected things like radio waves. And those of you that don't know, the lower the frequency of radio waves, the more it bounces off the ionosphere and comes back to Earth. This is why, like shortwave radio, you can hear things going on in China, England, everywhere all over the world. You pick up these waves because they're bouncing them off of the ionosphere, and they come back down to Earth in different places. So I imagine this did one of two things. Either made a whole bunch of static, which I'm assuming it did, or it actually created longer distances to send waves. Kind of interesting stuff. Space hurricanes. What next? Oh, glow-in-the-dark sharks. According to CNN, 3 shark species off the coast of New Zealand have been found to glow in the dark. Scientists from Belgium had believed the species to be bioluminescent, but for the first time were able to document the phenomenon in New Zealand waters. Their studies were published in the journal Frontiers in Marine Science after a research expedition to an area of the ocean floor known as Chatham Rise. One species observed, the kitefin shark, is believed to be the largest vertebrate able to produce light. The 3 shark species inhabit the area of the ocean known as the Twilight Zone, ranging from 656 to 3,280 feet deep. Research suggests these creatures' glowing camouflage may help them hide from predators. Yeah. Who's your predator if you're a shark? Killer whales? I don't know. But yes, there is a thing on this planet called glow-in-the-dark shark. You heard it here on I Do This for Free. Yes, it happened. Kind of bizarre. I don't even know what to think about that. Sharks are cool. I like sharks. But really, honestly, kind of scary. Now, this next one, maybe a little bit political. Not really. Since I was in high school, and even middle school, I can remember hearing that the population explosion is going to actually come back, and, there's going to be starvation by the year 2000. There's going to be people dying in the streets because we can't feed them by the year 2000. There's going to be, mass hysteria, all this stuff by the year 2000. Well, here we are 21 years after the year 2000, and we're still feeding everybody. In fact, it's kind of a shame we have governments that pay people not to grow crops instead of growing them and shipping them to places that don't have food. Call me crazy, but, that's just the thing. According to CBS News, new data is confirming that a baby boom that some doctors expected was actually a baby bust. The baby boom that some doctors expected is actually a baby bust. Health departments in more than 24 states provided records to CBS News showing a 7% drop in births in December, 9 months after the first lockdown began. Researchers say it continues a much bigger plunge in the fertility in recent decades. The number of babies the average woman in the U.S. is expected to deliver has dropped from nearly 4 in the 1950s to less than 2 today. What do you have, 1.5 babies? Is that what you have now? Anyways, the drop could present an entirely different risk to society than one that the first warned about decades ago. When an apocalyptic fear gripped America in the 60s and 70s, that's what I was talking about earlier. The stakes in this battle are far greater than any other we have fought, Walter Cronkite said in a 1970 CBS News broadcast. The experts we interviewed told us population was the fundamental crisis. The experts. These are the same experts that said we were going to have an ice age. That, by the way, I'm supposed to be broadcasting this from under 2 miles of ice. Didn't happen. As the world stampeded towards 10 billion people, many researchers back then predicted that overpopulation would ruin humanity. Biologist Paul Ehrlich once explained the threat as the population bomb in the title of a book he authored in 1968. Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come, and by the end I mean an utter breakdown of the capacity of the planet to support humanity, he said in a 1970 broadcast. Okay, let's do the math. 1970. That would have made 1985 the end of humanity. It didn't happen. Today, however, a very different note is struck by researchers like University of Southern California professor Dowell Myers, who studies demographic trends. The trouble is we overshot and we dropped it down too much now, Myers told CBS This Morning co-host Tony Dalcopale, who I don't know who that is. While the global population is still growing, a major study published in The Lancet in 2020 predicted it would peak in 2064 and then fall by nearly 1 billion people by the end of the century. The reason being fewer babies. The U.S. is already below the so-called replacement level by some measures, meaning fewer younger people to support the country's otherwise aging population. Myers said of the decline, that is a crisis. We need to have enough working-age people to carry the load of these seniors who deserve their retirement. They deserve all of their entitlements, and they're going to live out another 30 years, he said. Nobody in the history of the globe has had so many older people to deal with. So basically what they're saying is, there's not enough young married couples having kids or people having kids to support the top-heavy aging population who are probably now going to have to work until they're 80 years old because, the promise of, hey, if you give a little bit to Social Security, you're going to be fine when you retire. Gen X nailed it. We said that Social Security was probably just going to be a laughing stock by the time we got retirement age. It's looking more and more like that may happen. We need to have enough working age people to carry the load of these seniors. We thought, we would see a baby boom after this pandemic being, couples being locked together, but we just haven't seen it. And this is according to David Jaspin, chair of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics at Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia. Japan said patients are not only worried about their health, but their finances as well. Jaspin. The guy's name is David Jaspin. It sounds like Japan. I get a report every morning at 5:15 about what has happened in the last 24 hours. And the first report I see is the number of deliveries in the last 24 hours, Jaspin said. It's less than it used to be. People are not having babies. And what's starting to happen is, because people are not having babies, the workforce is dropping. Because the workforce is dropping, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to come open for people to actually do better. However, people who are older are just going to have to make up their mind that they're going to have to be more sly. They're going to have to be a little more frugal. They're going to have to live below their means. And they're going to have to basically accept the fact that they may have to carry a part-time job all the way up to death. Throwing that out there. Prepare now, especially if you're in your 20s. Heed what I say. You know, if you've got kids in their 20s and 30s, start talking to them. Say, you know, look, there's not a lot of babies being born in this country, so things could topple when you get retirement age. Be prepared. Prepping, right? All right. I promised you this one. In Hamodia.com, an Israeli scientific team has invented a way to hook up a robot to an ear from a dead locust. Yeah, I just said that. An Israeli scientific team has invented a way to hook up a robot to an ear from a dead locust, enabling the robot to hear and respond to human commands. The Times of Israel reported on Thursday. The robot at Tel Aviv University moves forward on a one-clap command and backwards on two claps. The researchers explain that this marks the first time a sense organ has been integrated into electronics and demonstrates the sensory capacity of animal parts, noses, eyes, ears, and touch sensors, to be fed to machines. We decided to use an ear to demonstrate what we can do, but the big deal is the general principle that we can use animal sensory systems for robotic platforms, Ben Moaz, one of the scientists, told the Times. We are showing that it's possible to take the animal kingdom's power for sensing, which is much greater than any invention humans have built, and integrate it into our technology, he added. The team behind the breakthrough, Mayo's Aiden Fischel, Professor Yassi Yavel, and Professor Amir Ayali, published a paper announcing their achievements in the journal Sensors. You know what this is, right? You know what this is? This is the start of Borg. Cyborgs. My God, we're building cyborg cockroaches now. Anyways, Moaz is excited about the project. He says this is very exciting. He noted that some of the remarkable abilities of animals and insects which can now be integrated into robots. For example, some animals have amazing abilities to detect explosives or drugs, and the creation of a robot with a biological nose could help us preserve human life and identify criminals in a way that is not possible today. Some animals know how to detect diseases. Others can sense earthquakes. We can start to integrate some of these abilities into technology. They're building animal cyborgs. This should terrify you. Am I the only one that's freaked out by this? Really? I mean, yeah, okay. A little unsettling, that's all. But that's okay, because the CDC's got your back. According to Futurism.com, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention updated its official guideline and recommendations for the zombie apocalypse. If it sounds like this perhaps isn't the best time to dedicate resources to a fictional crisis, well, we hear you. But public health experts told Yahoo News that they think it's a smart move on the CDC's part. Even if the central premise is almost certainly facetious, they suggest that encouraging people to plan in advance for potential disasters could go a long way in mitigating the next real public health emergency. I'm on the same page with these people. I think it's great, University of Buffalo epidemiologist John Selleck told Yahoo. As we've seen with coronavirus disasters, preparedness is crucial. The CDC first published its zombie guidelines, which it makes clear are meant to be tongue-in-cheek, in 2011. And while the conceit isn't exactly grounded in reality, the advice is recommendations like stocking up on food, water, first aid supplies, and other essentials, as well as creating a family emergency plan before disasters hit, are all valuable recommendations regardless of the specific reason you're planning ahead. That way, when disaster does hit, you might not have to find yourself standing in line trying to find or buy a precious roll of toilet paper. 2020 made something like that not seem so impossible anymore. Natural disaster preparedness instructor Cheryl Nelson told Yahoo. It creates the mindset, well, gosh, if a global pandemic happened, what's next? Zombies? Maybe I should prepare. So there you have it. The CDC has thrown out a guide to prepare for the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, I'm on board with that. If you listen to me enough, you know that I'm kind of one of these guys that say, hey, you at least need to have a week or two of prep. And now that we've seen what happened down in Texas with the snowstorms that went way beyond anything else, they were without power. A lot of times they were without water for longer than they were without power, because after the power came by, they had to keep the water shut down because there were so many leaks. And then they had a boil alert for the water they did have. So there you go. Be prepared. And it's funny that the CDC, I'm good. A lot of people think it's screwing around. I'm good with the CDC using the zombie apocalypse because it relates to younger people. I mean, how many of these video games are out right now that are based on a zombie apocalypse, that are based on something that's, it's fantasy. But to use that kind of thinking to say, okay, this is planning for the zombie apocalypse, but it also is reality and plans for, pretty much any other emergency. There's basic things you need to have. And this is it. To call it the zombie apocalypse guideline, okay, go ahead, do it. If it gets more people interested in at least being a little bit prepared, then you're going to be okay. I think it's doing its job. So there you have it. Man, thank you so much for listening. We got a few minutes. I want to go over a few things that's going on right now. The warm weather's coming up. And that being said, I'm going to be starting to set up my base station for ham radio. Now, I've gone over this before in a couple of things, but recently I got my technician license. And what I'm going to be doing is a technician license allows you to basically broadcast on some frequencies. One of them's 2 meter, another one's 70 centimeter. You can do some Morse code and stuff like that on 50 meter, but I'm going to stick to the ones I like and the ones I know and the ones that are easiest to operate, which are 2 meter and 70 centimeter. So I'm going to be putting up an antenna and making a base station. I'll do a report on that. I really will. And after I get everything set up, get the radio installed and everything like that, I will be setting up what they call an all-star link. Now, the all-star link will be running, of course, on my Raspberry Pi computer that I have. It doesn't take a whole lot of processing to get this thing to do what it's supposed to do. So my whole point about this is learn new things. Invest in your brain. I sat here the other day and I booted up that Raspberry Pi. There's things I wanted to do. There's things I wanted to mess around with. Just screwing around. It's basically all in the interest of seeing what's out there, what I can do. And I got back into doing some programming. I used to do a little computer programming. One of my jobs for my career for years was kind of doing the behind the scene programming and making inventory adjustments and making inventory reordering points and stuff like that work, which means you had to do quite a bit of background computer programming. And so this was actually kind of fun. I'm not totally ignorant to it. However, Raspbian, Linux, whatever, there's a couple of different things that go on that are basically loosely based on Linux programming, is a whole different program. It's a whole different ballgame. It's got some different languages that you have to use. But get out there, try new things. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to do a lot, but keep your brain functioning. Keep it going. Keep it learning. The spice of life, and I've brought this to you years ago on this show, that there's people out there that pick one thing and they are experts at it. They know everything about a certain subject. That's fine. I'm not one of those people. I know a little bit about a lot. I would rather do that. I chase squirrels. I see something like, ooh, what's Raspberry Pi? Next thing you know, I'm looking at it and checking it out and going, well, this is cheap and it looks like it'd be fun. And hey, let's build a project. So I get one and I screw around with it. I learn it. I'm not an expert on it, but I want to be able to look at something and go, oh yeah, I know what that is. And here, this is what you do and blah, 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 blah. Bang. Hey, it's working. It makes life interesting. New programs on a computer, new books, new concepts, new workouts to keep your body in shape, to keep things going, which, oh my gosh, I gotta get out and start running again. I weighed myself this morning and I was like, well, relaxing time's over. I have been on the treadmill and stuff like that, but it just doesn't take the place of getting out and running. Now that Michigan is starting to thaw out and warm up a little bit, time to hit the pavement, time to get the doggo all, and she likes to run with me. Time to get going, but don't sit there. And I know that, and hopefully this pandemic and the madness will be gone soon. Don't let it force you to sit there and rot your brain. Keep yourself functioning. Keep yourself mentally stimulated. Keep yourself physically in shape, physically going. Don't sit there and rot. I can't imagine what the fallout, the psychological fallout, the physical fallout, the mental fallout from this pandemic is going to be when it's all said and done. And you're not going to hear about it for a while. It's going to be 5-10 years before they really come back and say, you know what? From March of 2020 until whenever they lift all of the, we're all free again. We're all free to do whatever we want to do. We screwed ourselves so bad, and we can never let that happen again. It's going to come, I can tell you, because suicide rates are off the charts. They don't want to talk about that. Mental health problems are off the charts. They don't want to talk about that. We won't recognize the physical problems that we have created by making everybody basically stagnant for a year. We have no idea how bad that's going to affect society as a whole. But you're going to watch those, physical ailments jump, because you can't be sedentary for an entire year and expect that nothing is going to come of it. It doesn't happen. Now, I have not. I'm what you call an essential employee. I have been going gangbusters since day one. I ran a couple of half marathons last year. I got myself in good shape. I was doing just fine. From the basically middle of November till now, I took some time off, let my body heal. I'm ready to jump back in on it. I'm ready to get myself going again. I have been doing things. I have been on my treadmill. I have been, dieting right. It's just this last 2 weeks that I've all of a sudden been on an eating binge, which means it's time to get out there and do my thing. But don't let yourself rot from the inside out. Try new things, learn new things, do new things. Keep yourself engaged. I can't tell you how important that is. One of the reasons I do this show, because it forces me to bring you new content, forces me to bring you things that you probably would never heard of, I've never heard of, and it helps you stimulate your thinking. Hopefully you will walk away knowing something that you didn't know before today. And if you knew about glowing sharks and using bugs' ears on robots, if you knew about that before today, well, good on you. I sure didn't. I'm Alan Ray. This is a refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. Keep it tuned to KLRNRadio.com. We're back to .com now. All week. There are so many good programs, so many special things going on. I will be back Sunday night with Circumspice, the right side of Michigan, all things Michigan from a conservative point of view. It goes live at 8 o'clock. I know I have to pre-record this, but Circumspice is live. Get in the KLRNradio.com chat room, badger me, pick on me, whatever. Even though it's all about Michigan, there's people from all over that listen to it because there's some valuable stuff in there that you can learn. And it's a lot of politics, but it's also a lot of other things too, including the Michigan Fishing Report. I love it. I'm Alan Ray. We'll talk again soon. God bless you.
mentally like this.